Greetings from Just Car People Things. Mike here today, and we are going to drive an S2000. Isn't it great? It's so cool. The only thing is, we are not going to drive this S2000 because it's inside for the winter, and I don't want to die on RE71Rs. So we're going to take a little wander out the garage here, and look at our winter beater here, the Camaro. And look at that, there's another S2000. They're growing on trees. And not just is this another S2000, this is our friend TheTopher's S2000. This is his project car. And so he has gone through and purchased one of these from Washington, I think, and somewhere out west or somewhere in a non-rust state, and has been using it as his winter daily driver, which, let me tell you, for under 15 to 20 grand, this is one of my favorite daily drivers. So we're going to jump in real quick, say hi to the Topher.
What's up?
What's up? Topher signature move with the clap your boots together there.
That's right. Get that Topher tap.
One of the most fun parts about an S2000, you flip the key on, and then all that button does is start the car. That's it. Yeah, don't press it again, because it actually fires the starter. So yeah, you've done that, and you get this horn, and then everyone in the parking lot turns and looks at you and is like, what's wrong with that clown? Yep. But man, what a cool car. It is super fun, and still has a lot of its original AP1 trimmings at 145,000 miles. This is a 2001 model. These are a little bit more Spartan than some of the later cars, and probably the most S2000 of all the vehicles. So when you sort of move through that progression of the model years, these early ones to me always feel the most raw and probably the most fun to drive. So we're going to go take it for a quick spin, and really glad you guys could come along for the ride. Don't ever hesitate to hit that like or subscribe button while we're here during the intro. So that said, let's get rolling.
Yeah.
You have to really get used to a car that you just revved to 3,000 RPM just without batting an eye at it. And that's something I'll say, like, when you drive one of these every day, you have to get very comfortable with the fact that you're going to spin 3,000-4,000 plus RPM just to get it to kind of move around in traffic a little bit. So that being said, it is warmed up. We did have it idling, and we'll just take it for a quick spin around here.
I've done a few things to refresh the interior of this car. It came to me with a pretty rough steering wheel that was peeling, just kind of disintegrating. And then the gauge cluster lens is brand new. Gauge cluster surround is
oh yeah, you got
old.
that looking nice.
Yeah.
Mine's pretty ripped up. These tend to look pretty rough over time, which is unfortunate at best.
Yeah.
So
my buttons or my knobs were starting to like delaminate and peel and crack and turn into glue.
On a convertible that is 20 plus years old, 22 or 3 years old, sits in the sun. Yeah. Like I'll tell you, in mine, my soft top is two different colors. There's the color of the soft top that's right here that's exposed to the sun, and then there's the rest of it that's black. Yeah. So, and actually even my visors are split down the middle. You flipped your visors over probably at some point. I don't know if you noticed that.
Oh, that is interesting.
So I don't know, but a lot of them are two-tone because they sit up against this bit here. So
that's funny.
It's just very random. Things you notice. I'm like, why am I looking at the mirror right now? It's kind of up there, but
I love this thing. It's so happy.
You just get to bang that massive downshift and just kind of bucket it in. Just right on that VTEC actuation, you just sort of float into that corner. Man, how much fun is that? It's so great. That's awesome. You can have all that fun in a area where most people are driving 50 miles an hour, and you're not just gonna kill somebody. Or if I was in the Camaro doing that, we'd be going 120 right now. And I just love that about these cars. There's so much driving thrill associated with it, and so much great induction sound and valve and exhaust sound that you can really have a lot of fun. There aren't a lot of POV videos with the roof up in an S2000. Most people throw the roof down. They want to have that convertible life, and as a result, you don't hear how great all the mechanical noises are in these cars. So I adore that. But
yeah, there are definitely pros and cons to having roof up versus roof down. I just sorted a bunch of rattles in the back recently.
Yep.
And I'm really happy driving this with the roof up all winter because of that. But before, it was kind of a miserable experience. A lot of wind noise.
Mine squeaks right over my left shoulder. It just has like a left to right kind of sound, and I think I've thrown half a can of silicone at the joints on the top, and I still can't seem to figure out how to fix that, which is, unfortunate, but that is the game sometimes. So with that, All right, we're gonna pretend like we take videos professionally here with someone who does it professionally, because I look like a clown right now, but hey, whatever works. I'm gonna keep missing that upshift for a minute until I get used to this thing again. As you can imagine, I was just saying that when you daily drive a 1LE, when you jump into this, the actual experience is very different in terms of dynamics.
Opposite car.
But one thing I love about being inside an S2000 with the roof up, you see so many videos with the roof down on an S2000 that it really makes you appreciate the induction sound and how loud these cars are inside, which is just great fun. So we're not going to do a ton of beating yet because this thing is still technically cold. You've got decent brake pads on this too, right?
Yeah, these are track pads.
You can tell.
Yeah. I'm actually not too excited about them in the wear. They bite immediately though. They almost bite too much.
Yeah, it had a really good feel when I just stepped into them a little bit, so.
It dust like crazy.
Yeah, that is a downside to them. So you guys would also appreciate, these cars have a cold rev limiter too. So, you know, when you're not fully warmed up, you don't have 2 or 3 bars of heat, the ECU will auto limit the motor, much like the old BMWs, to 6,400 RPM, not to 9,200. You probably didn't know that because you're not a jerk who beats on their car when it's cold. But for those of you out there who are not good people, it's important to know that, and kind of like worth thinking about. So it's great fun to be able to drive one of these, but don't beat on it when it's cold. Over time, one thing I'll say about them, when I bought one probably 10 or 11 years ago, they were still relatively plentiful. Engines were still relatively cheap, like $1,500 to $2,000. There's no new old stock motors anymore. You have to get a used one now, and the prices have started to creep back up. An engine for one of these now is $3,000 or $4,000.
Oh, okay. I thought the engines were like $7 grand for these.
It's getting there for a really good one. You could easily spend over $5.
Yeah.
And so that's just something to think about and be aware of if you're owning one of these and working on it and beating on it and racing it. It used to be a really cheap car to run, like borderline, almost as cheap as a Miata to run in some ways. That's starting to creep back up a little bit, I find. And it's because these are becoming rarer and a little more collector-y and fun.
Yeah.
I will say, for having more than 50,000 miles more than my S2000 has in the garage, this thing feels nearly identical. They're always... you've been in a bunch. Even when they're horribly bagged on,
yeah, they're
like,
still great.
They're still really good, you know? Like, it's really shocking how good some of them are to just drive, and that's just awesome. So I love that. I did notice your car did not turn the AC on when we got in the car. I had to turn the AC on manually with the defroster.
Oh, yeah.
So that was kind of interesting. Well, we've run out of road here because they're replacing a dam actually up the road. So we are not going to go Thelma and Louise in someone else's S2000 for kind of obvious reasons.
Not gonna Dukes of Hazzard it today.
Nope. But the nice part about this is we do now finally have some temperature back in the motor, so we can do this and do what I wanted to the whole time and hear some VTEC. Which is so satisfying. These cars, it reminds me so much of riding a motorcycle. It's like the closest you can get, you know, just to like that. I had a VFR Honda Interceptor motorcycle for a while, VFR 800, which is a V4, and it has hyper VTEC in it. 7,000 RPM. It goes from 2 valves a cylinder to 4 valves a cylinder and high lift, and it sounds frequently like one of these. Those track pads are great too.
Yeah, they are.
And you can just sing one of these all day. Now, we did have a friend that had a turbo NB Miata, and we went on a trip together. And what I found was that if I kept my S2000 in VTEC the whole time, I could keep up with him.
Yeah.
But if I let it drop out of VTEC, he'd start pulling away from me.
Sure. It was like stock at Miata again.
Right. It was just like, yeah, we're going back to the NAMB without a turbo on it, you know, which is very fun. But what you had to get used to is the fact that you're literally just painting the car, you know, just,
oh yeah,
you're spending 20-30 minutes in it above 6,000 RPMs,
yes.
which is like super abusive feeling. And this gearbox is just banging shifts in it. It's so good. I really do think this is the best car you can buy under $30,000, 100%. And you can just sort of fling it in, even squirmy and sketchy on these snow tires. It kind of wants to move around a little bit, which is just so much fun. God, I love this thing.
It's the best.
It is, and we're gonna nerd out about it
because becoming my favorite sports car.
Which is wild. You told so years and years ago you drive hundreds of cars every year and do hundreds of videos every year. You were driving a bunch of cars, and you said to me, Mike, your S2000 is in the top 5 of sports cars I've driven this year.
Yeah.
And I was like, top 5 of sports cars? What are you talking about? It's, you know, it's like a $15,000 S2000. It's not anything special, you know. And now that I have started doing this and started driving a bunch of other cars and other sports cars, the only driving experience personally that I've found sub $50,000 or $60,000 that I think is remotely as good is the 1LE.
Yep.
And really, there's no modern equivalent to this car. There just isn't.
No. New Miata's kind of close.
It's getting there.
With some mods, but stock, it's not the same.
Well, and I've said for a long time that Miatas have been very close to this for years and years. It's like they've never quite gotten there in terms of where the Miata is dynamically.
Yep.
And so, finally, after another 15 years of development, these went out of production in 2009, here we are in 2024,
Yep.
the Miata is finally getting close, which I think is really funny.
Yep. This is still a quicker car, though, in a straight line. I mean, the chassis...
Oh, we learned that.
Is sorted,
Not that we were racing. We did learn that, though.
Well, I mean, yeah, like, I did kind of just a little pull with this versus the BRZ, which is the new BRZ. I even have a shorter final drive in mind, and some mods.
And this is still quicker.
Power, and this pulled the car length up to 45 miles an hour. Like,
Yeah.
Immediately.
One thing I'll say, too.
It could be the taller gearing, too. Or the taller
If you're thinking about driving one of these every day, you are getting a lot of noise. You're hearing a lot through here. You're going to hear a lot of noise. You know, it's a thin, soft top. That being said, this is a pretty tame car to drive, relatively.
The seats are super comfortable on a long ride.
Yeah, and you can actually, I'll show maybe when we get out, but you can pull that little piece of fabric that covers the center of the seats forward and wedge things behind it. So if you want a little bit more lumbar in an S2000, top tip for you.
Okay.
Because for me, I was always a little uncomfortable, and then I did that and it like fixed it. There's a microfiber, half of a microfiber towel wedged in my seat back that you would never know is there. So
these seats are super tired in this car, and they're still really supportive, really comfortable.
yeah, like they don't collapse. Sometimes the foam on the outside of the driver's side will collapse, but that transient VTEC sound, which I just adore, and you can just stand on the brakes.
It's so comfortable on these squishy winter
It
tires.
is. It's just kind of like you can kind of just like bucket it in. So
it's a little taller, like it's great.
So I want to jump out and actually do a walk around here just for like 2 seconds, and then we'll just go back. Cool.
Yeah.
I'm actually gonna leave it running.
Sure, why not? You can stay in here.
You can do whatever you want. Okay. All right. Man, this thing is so much fun. And this is not a particularly expensive or special S2000. As I understand, you didn't pay a ton of money for it.
13 grand shipped.
Shipped to here. And it's a Southern car. It's from like Kentucky or Washington State.
Yeah, so I've got about 17 into it, which is about what it's worth.
Yeah.
But maybe once I've seen a little dip recently.
Yeah, they've kind of calmed down a little, which is further great for these. I see you've got the track pads dusting. You got a solid soft top on it, which is good.
Yeah.
Mine's actually starting to rip. All the soft tops will start to rip. Usually right around here, this is where they'll fail. You can put a piece of carpet inside there to protect it.
some Gorilla tape.
Yeah, there's many options to kind of DIY that, but they just sort of purr away at idle, and it's a great looking car. You just had it detailed.
Yep. Oh, you gotta hear the exhaust from behind.
Oh yeah. Hey, piss revs for everybody. All right. great.
It does.
It really does. It's got a really, when you're really ripping on it, it sounds great.
Yeah.
So, all right, well, let's jump back in because it's kind of gross out.
Yeah, it's nasty.
Ooh, your door is much lighter than mine. Ooh, again, Topher signature move.
Many more openings.
So,
That smell is just the crown of rust control burning off.
oh yeah.
Yeah.
Your car's on fire.
Yeah.
We
Smoke too.
we actually haven't lit one on fire yet, which is amazing for all of our typical behavior. So, but very comfortable in the cabin. The earlier cars have fabric here. The later cars have like a vinyl wrap. Mine has vinyl over this.
The leather is really nice.
Yeah, like the vinyl wrap on that, or leather wrap.
Yeah, the leather vinyl wrap. Yeah.
You have the classic, this is the original radio that's actually got the external balance and fade knobs. So
we upgraded the speakers in this. It actually has better sound quality than the BRZ. It's
that
really good.
doesn't shock me. One thing I'll say about a lot of people buy, if I said to you go buy an AP1, buy the cleanest one you can find, because buy the cleanest one you can find. But if I was hunting for one, which I was, and you were too, I personally would buy an 02 or an 03 if you can find one, if you can find it. You get door tweeters. So that's a quick way to tell if you're looking at like the interior pictures. One, is this an early AP1 or later AP1? They kind of built S2000s in like 2-year generations, like 2001, 02, 03, 04, 05, etc. The 02, 03 cars have glass rear windows, which is a little bit nicer for sound management. They have defrosters. They have tweeters here on the door. They've got a little bit better of a radio, a little nicer of a radio. Not that it seems to really matter much. The sound quality is largely garbage in these, and you don't buy one for the radio. It's just loud. It doesn't sound good. But the other thing is, from an oiling perspective, the 0203 cars got banjo bolts inside their motors. So if you're going to be beating on it and doing a ton of track work, I usually recommend to people hunt for a later, like an 02 or 03, because they tend to just be a little more reliable. Also, the rear suspension got progressively less snap oversteery.
Yeah, it got softer.
It got softer year over year over year, and by the time you got to the CR in like 08, 09, it was a very comfortable, very stable car to drive. So what a fun car.
I autocrossed this summer on RE71 RS tires, which this car was not designed around.
No.
And it was lifting a rear wheel. The only solution to that is just disconnect the rear sway bar and like proper suspension.
Yep, that's correct. So it's just wild. But this is such an easy car to drive. I mean, anyone could drive one of these, and it's just a blast. You get to make cool noises and get transient VTEC response like that, which is so much fun. The induction, you can just bucket it in, and you just get that little wiggle out of the tail. And it's not, this is the other thing I'll say about these cars. Two things. One, the induction noise is amazing. I actually think if you're looking for mods for your S2000 and you want more enjoyment out of your S2000, you're like, how do I spend $500 to $1,000 to make my car more fun and more enjoyable? Don't go buy an exhaust. Go buy an intake.
What intake do you have on yours?
It's the FIPK, which is the K&N, which I know several commenters are going to be like, that's the hot air intake for S2000s. This is true. You're gonna get so much sound out of it, and when you hear that induction, you've got a bunch of videos of this. It especially with the roof up, you just it sounds like a half of a Ferrari. It's so fun, and you also get the, when you put your foot down, you really get this like whoa kind of sucking noise, which is awesome.
This has the factory airbox that's been like dremeled out.
Yeah, which is not a bad mod.
Airboxectomy.
Yes, which is common, but all that said. I personally think that that's the best mod for an S2000 is some type of intake. Do be cognizant, some of them that move the filter around, water can be an issue. So that's actually why I selected an FIPK. We live here in Michigan. It rains a lot sometimes. I didn't want to be caught out in deep water somewhere, suck some water up into the intake and hydrolock the motor. That would be very bad. So I ended up with the FIPK because it keeps the airbox elevated up higher. The second thing I'll say is that when I was shopping, I was actually cross-shopping Lotus Elises. And around that time, a really clean S2000 was about 15K, and a really decent driver Lotus Elise was about 25 to 30K. Those numbers have changed dramatically in the last 10 or 11 years. But the comment I will make is that this was 95% of the entertainment with a fraction of the sort of trade-offs the Elise and other kind of, as you move further into the sports car spectrum, they get faster, they get meaner, they get a little bit more dangerous. We were just ripping on that little side road, and we barely caught that pickup truck that was sitting there.
Sure.
Barely caught it. So it just is something to think about. For all of the years and the stupidity and the dumb stuff I have done time and time again in my S2000, I have never been pulled over in it.
Really?
Because it's just not
go knock on
that.
some wood, 'cause you're gonna get pulled over
I
tomorrow.
know, but you know, when like first day out in the spring, I'm gonna get stopped. But I just tend to find, like, you just, from a speed perspective, the top of third gear is like 85 miles an hour.
Yeah.
You're never really quite going fast enough to get yourself into jail.
Sure.
You know, you jump into the 1LE and the top of third gear is 106.
Yeah.
That's a different, you know, once you get up into that triple digits territory, you're gonna get yourself into some trouble. So,
But the excitement factor and the feeling of speed
is all there.
It's
in
like,
spades.
It scares you just enough. It's perfect.
Yes,
great.
it's just scary enough. And these cars, of course, do not have any nannies. There's no traction control.
Yeah.
The later cars, 06 I think plus, had traction control.
Yep.
But the early cars had no traction control, a pretty aggressive rear suspension setup, a limited slip diff, etc. Mine's on coilovers. This one's on its stock suspension.
Yep.
Factory suspension at 145K, and it feels solid.
It's been refreshed.
Okay. So someone's put another set of shocks on it, probably.
Shocks, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because I did shocks on mine at about 75K, and I went to Bilstein PSS coilovers, and I personally found the PSSs to be very S2000 CR-like.
They feel great.
The other thing I'll say, if you're shopping for shocks for these, make sure you buy ones that have external rear reservoirs. So that could be the Ohlins, it could be the Bilsteins. You're going to get better shock performance and get more travel. Because what I find is when you go to a coilover, you're giving up that travel, you're making it stiffer, and there's no, you know, you're taking a car that has been progressively designed to have a softer and softer rear suspension to keep you from spinning backwards into a tree. And that's gone away then, and they just get really not fun to drive hard. So that being said, I could go on for all day about how great this is sitting here in a driveway with the car idling, talking all about it. But thank you for the drive.
Yeah,
this
man.
has really scratched my S2000 itch until it stops snowing and stops salting on our roads, and I can get ours out. But these are awesome cars, and I just tell you, if you are thinking about, hey, do I want to buy a $25,000 or $30,000 Miata that's newer, or do I want to buy a $25,000 or $35,000 S2000 that's older? Personally, I want to be in this every time because it's just a very cool car. It's got a really neat fun factor to it.
That's the debate. And when we drove all three, that was the conclusion that we came up with between BRZ, Miata, S2000 also.
That's true. I'll drop a link to that that video of us totally not violating any traffic laws in those three cars. So that said, thank you all for tuning in. Appreciate anyone liking and subscribing. Love making videos like this, and this is just one of those cars that if you are car people, it is for you. So cheers.